tied to the identity of the person, on top of the fact that it's very expensive.
Some little punk ass change worth about $500-$600 back then. Bullshit change. I guess he get that to his little henchmen. Gave them bullshit change away.
Yeah, because I know Suge Knight, Tupac, Snoop, they wasn't wearing no, cheap chains like that. So it had to be his henchmen. So you saying his henchmen was wearing like...
That was bullshit change. I wouldn't wear that bullshit. I wouldn't put that on my neck.
So how you know the chains was cheap?
Because I've seen it.
Tupac medallion. What's the meaning of it? How much it cost? What did it represent? Machiavelli, Illuminati.
So this Orlando person allegedly stole somebody's chain who was in the Bloods. Well, Orlando is out and about one night and he is spotted by Tupac and Suge Knight and the rest. So they get in a brawl. Basically, Orlando gets beat up. Now, of course, he runs and tells his Crips crew, which includes his uncle, Keefe D. Remember, he's also a Crip. And according to that telling of the story, one thing led to another. They roll up on the car. Tupac is in. Boom, boom, bang, bang. That's all she wrote. But like I said, the specific details of the story are up for debate. I mean, I certainly wasn't there. I don't know. Now, just about 6 months later, on March 9th, 1997, Tupac's biggest manufactured rival, Christopher Biggie Wallace, would also be gunned down in a tragically similar fashion. Over the years, people would try to bring up other names with Christopher Wallace, aka Biggie, did not have to do with Tupac at all at that point. And that interview in January 2009, it was recorded. The audio, at least. I don't know, maybe the video was recorded too, but the audio was recorded. Now, 2 months later, in March 2009, Keefe D becomes an informant for a federal task force. The reason he became an informant was because he had actually been, I think, caught or, busted with some substances he wasn't supposed to have that he was allegedly trading, aka trafficking. And he becomes a snitch, aka confidential informant. Now, he does travel with these agents to New York to do some federal informing and some info gathering. And at this time, sometime in 2009, he does begin, Keefe D, he starts to allege that P. Diddy offered $1 million hit on Tupac. Okay, so this starts to be alleged, but it doesn't seem like anyone looked into it or did any investigation into it. Now, as a part, very, very importantly, as a part of this snitch assignment that Keefe D had willingly, voluntarily took on, he entered into what is called a proffer agreement. It's kind of like a plea deal. It's kind of like that. And if you were to just say he entered into a plea deal or a plea agreement, it would work. It would work for all intents and purposes for this conversation. But he didn't enter a plea deal. What they said was, if you tell us the information that you have on these people that we want the information for, you cannot be, and we will not pursue charges against you based on anything you tell us, or based on anything you give us, or based on anything that we discover based on things you tell us or give us.
More than a decade ago, Los Angeles police detectives interviewed then Southside Compton Crips gang leader Dwayne Keefe D. Davis about the of rapper Christopher Wallace, better known as Notorious B.I.G. Wallace was down just months after Tupac Shakur.
And he says, I really can't tell you. I was there, I knew Biggie, but I can tell you about what had happened in Las Vegas, alluding to Tupac's murder.
Greg Kading is the former LAPD detective who worked on the Wallace murder case. He says the exchange with Davis led to his admission of involvement in Tupac.
Caveat is that he got that confession under what's known as a proffer agreement.
Kading explains a proffer is a law enforcement tool used to get someone to tell the whole story with the understanding the information gathered can't be used against the person in court.
But when he goes outside of that agreement publicly, you know, all bets are off.
So Keefe D's like, fine, cool, great, I'll be a snitch, but y'all can't, turn this back on me and then try to put me in jail because that would be entrapment or whatever. So they enter into this proffer agreement, and that's all fine and good. But then Keefe D went on all kinds of interviews and podcasts talking all kind of about what had happened. And honestly, y'all, I'm usually trying to be on the side of the person who is being targeted, who's being prosecuted. I usually do, because it's a huge government system against one person. So usually I'm trying to give benefit of the doubt. But this man was doing some stupid stuff. He went out and told all kind of different versions of the story. For one, he told the cops one version, he told the podcasts one version, then he wrote a book, did a memoir. I mean, it was all kind of stuff. He was in a docu-series on some, I don't know, HBO or something. It was like he went all out here and he was talking a lot about this. And it was like his story wasn't adding up. And some of the stuff that he was saying was like admissions. He was saying like, oh, he passed to the front. And he said different stuff at different times. But the lawyer that still is alive in me somewhere is like, this man is so stupid. Why did he go and run his mouth about all this so much? Because he's clearly not telling the truth. That's the other issue, is that he's clearly not telling the truth because the stories do not all add up. He gets the details wrong. And maybe, you forget over the years, but maybe that's why you shouldn't run around telling 11 different versions of the story. But anyway, okay, so in 2019, Keefe D released a tell-all memoir about his time as a gangster in the streets or whatever. And the memoir was called Compton Street Legend. He seemingly openly admits that he was in the car that fateful night when Tupac was gunned down. Now, 3 years later, in September 2021, he participated in an Art of Dialogue interview where he made some, again, alarming admissions. So in this interview from September 2021, Keefe D talks about waiting for Tupac and Suge Knight to show up at a club after the Mike Tyson fight that night so that Orlando, the shooter, and Tupac could fight, like physically fight each other.
They're like, hey, they just jumped on your nephew. Like, ooh, said some death row.
So y'all ran into your nephew Orlando. What did he say to you?
Weird, he just said they jumped on him and stuff like that. I asked him, was he all right? His shoulders kind of up.
How mad was
I was more mad than him. But we went up there, and my little homies went and got the choppers. 3 choppers. It would have been a massacre.
But whenever Suge Knight and Tupac didn't show up, Keefe D took his nephew and, I don't know, maybe some other people, and started driving around to maybe look for Tupac, or maybe they accidentally saw him. I'm just kind of briefly giving y'all an overview of what I read as the summary. If I can find that clip, I'll put it in here.
Went up there, waited up there for about an hour, hanging out the window. He was like, Tupac! I was like, oh, there go that mother.
Here, otherwise y'all can just go and watch that interview, which you should do. So anyway, when the two didn't show up, Keefe D and his nephew, they get in the Cadillac, they get in the car, the Cadillac, they always got a Cadillac, and I have theories about the Cadillac too. It's a symbol for something, but it's going to be conservatorship or jail hours if I get into the theory right now. I need to do it with the evidence and all that. So according to this Art of Dialogue interview, Keefe D and his nephew are in the car. They spot Tupac.
So tell me about that. Orlando saying he wants to fight Tupac and have a heads up with him.
We was just, I was going to tell Suge, let him get down. That's all. He's just going to beat his ass.
Von Zilk is the one that provided y'all with the gun, right?
I don't know nothing about that.
I mean, it's in the book and everything. Yeah.
I don't know nothing about that.
Drake, he was the one that was supposed to shoot Tupac and Suge, but he got scared, right?
No, he didn't really get scared. He wasn't ready for that. They was youngsters, man. Kids.
But once again, I mean, y'all Crips, right? So you should be used to that, right, Drake? So why was
He wasn't ready for that. Everybody got a role, man. Everybody ain't killers. Everybody, you know what I'm saying? Everybody ain't gonna kill.
So
everybody
Drake
ain't with that.
shooter?
No.
Okay, so but he was the one that was supposed to shoot up Tupac and Suge, but for some reason he wasn't ready for it, so he gave the gun to Orlando, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And Orlando is the shooter. He's the known shooter. I mean, everybody know Orlando Anderson was a shooter. So Drake got cold feet. He didn't want to do it. He gave the gun to Orlando, and Orlando shot Tupac and Suge.
Yeah, he did his thing, yeah.
And according to that interview, the expectation was that another man in the Cadillac, DeAndre Smith, was going to pull the you-know-what. Well, Davis told the interviewer, quote, "Not everyone is a killer." So Orlando reportedly then took the from Smith, and then he fired the fatal shots. So in that telling of the incident, it was supposed to be this other guy, DeAndre, whoever, he was supposed to do it, but then he basically choked and couldn't do it. Then Orlando took the device and effectuated the plan, allegedly. That's according to this interview. Now, probably as a result of all that mouth running, all that blabbering, all that loose lipping, in the fall of last year, 2023, more than 20 years after the Tupac incident, a 3-month-long grand jury investigation took place in Clark County, Nevada, to investigate whether there was enough evidence to support a criminal proceeding against Keffe D for his involvement in the shooting. So they basically needed to have a grand jury to say, yeah, there's enough to go on here so far that y'all could at least try and move forward on these charges. Now, at this 3-month-long grand jury situation investigation, a lot of evidence was presented to the grand jury. And the most damning evidence of all that was presented was Keffe D's own words. The grand jury also saw the crime scene photos for the first time. No one seems to have actually seen those yet until just last year. And you can go and look those up. I'm not going to put them here because they're pretty graphic. They also saw pictures, which I have not seen, showing Tupac's body and the car and other crime scene visual data. Again, some of that is out there, so if y'all want to go see it, it is out there. I think this did Daily Mail or one of them put it out. Now, in the grand jury investigation where the prosecutors were presenting their case, they referred to Keffe D as the, quote, on-site commander ordered the unaliving. I mean, I'm not quoting here, but you know what I mean, of Tupac. It was also revealed during the 3-month-long grand jury evidence presentation and deliberation and all of that, that the police had raided a home of Keffe D in an effort to find items concerning the death of Tupac. And when they did this raid, they found some evidence, and then they talked about it in the grand jury investigation. So what was this evidence that they found in the house that they thought was relevant, that the prosecution thought was relevant? Multiple computers, a cell phone, a hard drive, an issue of Vibe magazine featuring Tupac. I don't know if he was on the cover or what. Several .40 caliber, you know whats, and 2, quote, tubs containing photographs. And I think the tubs also contained other types of memorabilia, if I'm remembering correctly, like pictures, newspaper clippings, article clipping, something like that. But definitely they had photographs, like Rubbermaid containers, I think, is these tubs they're talking about. So they found them in the raid on a house associated with Keffe D. Now, I guess the grand jury, I mean, obviously at this point we know the grand jury did find that there was sufficient evidence to indict Keffe D, and he was in fact indicted. And in September 2003, just about a year ago, Keffe D was arrested outside of a home, or maybe his home, in somewhere in Nevada. I think it was Las Vegas. And he, at the time, he was kind of still playing LARPing as like this gangster, like, oh, this is the biggest case in Las Vegas history or whatever.
Hey, Keith, Metro Police. Come over here. Oh, you got it? All right. Look, he's on the pro. He's on the pro. All right. I need to drink some water, man.
So what they got you for, man?
Okay. Biggest case in Las Vegas history.
Oh yeah?
September 7th, 1996.
And it's kind of like, okay, guy, like, let it go. Like, go get down to the church, get down to the mosque, get down to the temple, the chapel, whatever it is, whatever you need to do. Turn on a meditation, guided meditation, do a breathing, do a Wim Hof, because you're getting too old for this. And the fact that he was still this damn old, the only living person that is the eyewitness of the unaliving, the only one alive that ain't in prison. I mean, the man, he should have stopped while he was ahead, but he didn't. He kept going, kept wanting to rewrite the narrative, wanting to rewrite history, and this is what you get. So Keffe D's indicted, he's arrested, body camera footage comes out. All right, now it's time to go to court, right? Once the grand jury says, yeah, you can prosecute, they went ahead and arrested him and started prosecuting immediately. And they've been going to court for this issue, but on small pre-trial issues and not on the trial. The actual trial will start in November. So what is Keffe D's argument? What is his defense? What is his lawyer saying? Well, at first, he couldn't afford a lawyer. Interesting. So he got, of course, thank God, one appointed to him, which I do approve of. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful that we have that in this country. Thank God. I'm glad that my tax dollars do go to that. But he ends up getting a lawyer of his own. I think not a public defender. He's like a highfalutin, high credibility lawyer, this guy. And honestly, it seems to me like the guy hates Keefe D. It don't even seem like he's trying to really help him. But what is his defense? What is he trying to argue? What could you argue? I mean, Keefe D came out and he said he was the one passing gun. He was in the car. How are you going to defend yourself? Well, I'll tell you how he's trying to do it. So the first line of defense is the lawyer basically just calls his client, Keefe D, a liar.
Your Honor, my client pleads oopsie daisy.
A liar. He says he's lying to the cops. He lied to the cops when he talked to him, and he lied when he signed the paper under penalty of perjury, and he also lied whenever he did those podcasts. He's just a liar. He's just a liar. That's what the lawyer said.
The lawyer representing the man accused of orchestrating the murder of Tupac Shakur says we shouldn't believe his client as he prepares to represent him in what's being set up as the year's biggest trial.
He's a liar, then. Statements.
I would definitely say he's a liar.
Defense attorney Carl Arnold says we shouldn't believe what 60-year-old Dwayne Keefe D. Davis has to say about the shooting of Tupac Shakur. Arnold says Davis lied about his alleged involvement in Shakur's murder. So isn't it kind of stupid to do that and then get hit with a murder charge?
Yeah, it was really stupid.
And why should we trust Keefe D. now?
You shouldn't trust Keefe D. You absolutely shouldn't.
Now, I don't think that's going to help very much. I don't think it's going to help his case very much because if he can lie about that, he can lie about other stuff. So how are we going to believe anything Keefe D ever says in court? He claims that the reason that he made it up were that it was like threefold. A, other people were cashing in on their relationships to the story. So he wanted to cash in too. He was seeing the dollar signs of it all. B, he lied because he wanted to seem cool and like a gangster, like he was involved in something cool, I guess. And C, his lawyer actually proposed to a judge in good faith that one of the reasons that Keefe D lied to the police in 2009 and elsewhere was that he thought he couldn't get in trouble because he thought he had immunity.
He keeps repeating this, is that the whole thing is unfair. He feels that he had protection from his earlier statements that were made.
And that there was no possibility for repercussions if anyone did find out he was lying because he thought he had immunity.
Those earlier statements to police in California who were investigating not the death of Shakur, but the death of Notorious B.I.G.
He didn't have any information but said, hey, let me try to, rehash this Tupac murder, give you some information that he heard on the streets, and he filled in the gaps as they were asking questions.
Remember that proffer agreement we talked about a few minutes ago? Keefe D's lawyer is saying, well, that proffer agreement, my client thought, stupidly, that he could never be prosecuted for this, even if it turned out to be the case that he was bold-faced lying, which cannot be true. It just can't be. It's a bad faith argument, and I don't believe it. Personally, I don't. I mean, I wasn't there. I'm not inside his mind. I don't know. But when you enter into a proffer agreement, you have to sign a lot of paper, and part of that is I promise I'm telling the truth under penalty of perjury, under the full extent of the law, under the blah, blah, blah. And Keefe D would have definitely signed that. So if he was lying to the police, then the proffer agreement would have been null and void. So I don't know why the lawyer would be trying to argue this at this point. Also on top of that, Keefe D did know that there were not a lot of eyewitnesses still alive from this incident. In fact, there's only one other living witness, and that's Suge Knight. He was in the car with Tupac, and he's in prison. Now, let's say that the lawyer's he's a liar doesn't work. There's more defenses. There's another line of defense that the lawyer is gearing up. And that is that Keefe D wasn't even in Las Vegas. He wasn't even there. He wasn't even there.
You do not think he had any involvement in the murder of Tupac Shakur?
No.
None. He was not there.
No, I don't believe he's there.
So how could he be doing something? How could he be orchestrating things if he wasn't there? Now, I mean, listen, if I'm the prosecution, I could still make the argument that he still commanded that it happen, even if he wasn't physically there. But there really was very scant, very limited evidence, if any at all, that the prosecution could come up with to show that Keefe D was even in Vegas, which is going to be something they're going to have to do if they want to get him convicted. So that was the lawyer's, second line of defense. He was going to try the lying thing. He's going to try the he wasn't even there thing. And the lawyer basically, he wanted to get the case dismissed on these grounds before it ever went to trial. The lawyer wanted to say, no. My client wasn't even there, and the prosecution can't prove he was even there in the city. And so for that reason, we shouldn't even go to trial. Well, there's been some evidence. There's been some things happening that have updated that contention. New evidence that just came out within the last month suggests that Keefe D's wife had a hotel room rented at the Monte Carlo Hotel, which is now the MGM.
Well, people are waiting out here because, as you said, the Monte Carlo will open in just less than an hour to the general public. Now, if you take a look behind me, you can see that there are several people lined up here on the strip, and they're actually watching the spectacular fireworks display being put on by the Monte Carlo. But earlier tonight, VIPs have been enjoying an evening of grace and elegance. It was a night of glitter, glamour, people dressed to the nines.
You get a sense that you're almost in Europe. I happen to really like this particular look, ambiance.
The property that will usher in the era of popular elegance.
If you want a touch of Europe, come out to the Monte Carlo. This is Colette Shelton reporting live. Now back to you in the studio.
So the hotel was rented under the wife's name. Either the wife was there, maybe she was there with Keefe D, or maybe Keefe D just used her name to rent the hotel room. The prosecution also found that Orlando, the one who allegedly pulled the trigger that night, Tupac eventually had another hotel room rented across the way over there at the Excalibur Hotel. So these are ways that the prosecution is trying to place Keefe D in Las Vegas on the night that the fateful shots happened. So in my humble opinion, that does seem like enough circumstantial evidence to at least question whether Keefe D was in Las Vegas, and it doesn't seem that he's shown much of an alibi himself. So I don't know. I don't know if that argument's going to work either. I don't think the lying argument was a good one to make, but you have to, whenever all your stories don't add up, you have to just either say you have dementia or Alzheimer's or you was lying. So we'll go with that. And let's say that doesn't work. Let's say the case, moves forward and they can show Keefe D was in fact in Las Vegas. Well, a lawyer has one final line of defense lined up, and that has to do with the proffer agreement. The lawyer's basically going to try and argue that Keefe D thought he was immune from being prosecuted for this by any jurisdiction anywhere in the whole entire country because he had reached a proffer agreement with a different jurisdiction in 2009. Now, it does seem like the proffer agreement was entered into with the federal government, but I really don't think that that precludes a state government from seeking criminal charges, but I'm not an expert. Somebody who knows more than me maybe can comment in the comments. But the prosecutors in the Nevada District Court case, the one that are prosecuting Keefe D, they're claiming that that's not their jurisdiction and that's not their proffer agreement. They didn't have nothing to do with that, and they did not agree that they would never prosecute him. For their part, they claim any deals reached with other law enforcement in other jurisdictions don't have to do with them, and they think the case should proceed, and it is indeed proceeding. So where does that leave us today? Well, Keefe D, he was arrested in the fall of 2023, and he seems to have been in police custody ever since. He tried at the end of 2023 to get released to house arrest, but he didn't have enough money to afford the bail or the bond or whatever. So Keefe D is still in custody, and he has made several appeals to be released, but the judge will not let him out. At first, like I said, he was just kind of too broke to afford it, which is very expensive. I think he needed $120,000, $112,000 to bail, just like actually that much to get out. The bail itself was like $800,000 or something. I don't know, it was a lot. Most recently, he was able, Keefe D, interestingly, was actually able to find the money. Somebody was going to pay to bail him out, the $112,000. And this whole side, I think I need to make a whole video on this, but it was Cash Jones who provided the money. But he was just a middleman, front man for somebody else. There's video of this hearing. Law and Crime posted it. It's 45 minutes long total. I'll put a few clips in here to kind of give context. But this comes from that hearing where he was reported to have been lashing out at the prosecution. So like I said, Cash Jones coughs up the money. He coughs up the money for Keefe D's bail. But the judge won't let Keefe D out and won't let that man pay for the bail because the prosecutors are alleging that the money isn't Cash Jones's money. And they're arguing, right? The prosecutors are arguing this movie company is paying Keefe D's bail for an improper purpose because he committed a crime and he went blabbering about it. And so they don't think he should be able to make money off of bad actions, admitting to bad actions and stuff like that. So the prosecutors are basically like, Your Honor, this movie company clearly just wants to pay for his bail so they can interview him and so they can make a documentary about this. And that's not fair because he's a criminal and he's admitted to it. So we shouldn't let him out, even if he could come up with the bail. Well, the judge seems to agree with that, and she didn't let him out. Here's a clip of the judge talking about the suspicious wire transfer.
The bond premium was wire transferred out on June 11th. I see a transfer in right before that of $112,000 and $500. wire transferred in on June 11th and then immediately taken out in 2 separate payments. He provided me a check to show for a portion of the payment, and the rest was, I do see, wired out in the records. So my question ultimately is, where does that $112,500 transfer come from? Because given your client's own words, Mr. Jones was a middleman for this money, and so ultimately if I know who that came from, that would give me more peace of mind.
Right, and we did provide the court with the actual company that the check came from. And that was the Agent Entertainment Touring Group. And you can see that notation in...
Apparently, Cash Jones was merely a front or a middleman for that money, and they claim that the money actually came from AG Entertainment Touring Group. Now, allegedly, this is owned by a serial nightclub owner and Eritrean pride enthusiast, Alex Gideon. I don't know how to say his last name, apologies. So apparently Cash Jones himself also went on an interview at the same point in time after this hearing to tacitly admit that he was wired money from a third party. So there's all that going on with, you know, the bail and getting out, and I didn't even know that, you know, you could not get out based on who's giving you money and stuff like that. I mean, I guess I should have known that. Maybe I did learn that at some point, but maybe I forgot. But it does seem kind of weird that somebody's here with the money ready to pay for you to get out so you can be on bail. Also, Keffe D has cancer, or he did have cancer or something. Health issues situation. I'm not here to advocate one way or the other on it. I'm not particularly sympathetic to Keffe D, because even if he didn't do the crimes that he is alleged to have done, he admitted to them. You know what I mean? Like, he admitted to it. So it's like he went out lying, admitting to crimes for fun. Like, no. Anyway, as I said at the beginning of the video and several times now, the trial itself is set to begin in November. According to court papers obtained by the U.S. Sun, Keffe D became a government informant after he was caught trapping large amounts of drugs by a task force. He previously stated in an interview with law enforcement that, like I said, Diddy had offered him that $1 million. Now, interestingly to me, according to the allegations and the sources that I am reading, nobody of any import seems to have taken Keffe D's allegations about Diddy offering him $1 million for a hit on Tupac seriously, which begs the question to me, why? If they believe that Keffe D was in the car because he said he was, and they believe there was gang disagreements and fights because he said that there were, and they're going to hold that against him, then it only seems fair that they would also at least consider the veracity of the why behind it as well. Who is still protecting Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs is just the obvious question that I have at the end of this. Like, why isn't he being tried as a co-defendant here? Now, there's also a little bit of the complication of Marion Suge Knight. Suge Knight is, like I said, the founder of Death Row Records and is Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs' biggest rival, at least he was at the time of the shooting. He's currently serving time in prison for an unrelated incident. But remember, he was the one in the car with Tupac that night? Not only is Suge Knight an eyewitness to the situation, but he seems to be the only eyewitness who's still alive other than Keffe D. Now, Suge Knight, he claims he saw the shooter that night, and he claims it was not Keffe D's nephew, Orlando. He said it was only 2 people alive who knew who the shooter was that night, and Suge Knight said, "I'll never tell." That being said, he said it wasn't Orlando. It wasn't the one they're saying did it. But Suge also stated he was not going to testify in the trial in November for Keffe D or for anybody. So we'll see. I mean, if he gets subpoenaed as a prisoner, he might have to do it. I really don't know. And yeah, there is like a whole conspiracy theory that Keffe D's lawyer actually hates him, and this guy is just being set up as the patsy because, yeah, maybe he did actually have something to do with it, but a lot of people had something to do with it, and they're going to pin it all on him because he's been the only idiot coming around here out here telling everybody, public and documentaries and books and podcasts and the police and everybody else, that he was involved in it. So there's a conspiracy theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but I am looking forward to seeing how this all shakes out in November. I will be keeping up with it tangentially. Hopefully I'm not going to have to get too involved with it because it gets a little boring, but that's all I really have for today. In the meantime, facts ain't defamation. Love you, Mina K. Bye.
my girl. You play a night game. Thought that you could come up and make that off of my knee. Talking out the side of your neck like you insane. Cortisol levels to the roof. Inflame. Kids these days so shameless. Selling out real friends for a paycheck. Mama didn't teach them no home training. Wanna be me so bad, but they fail. Step to the plate though. You take a challenger. I ain't scared of no low life scavenger. I should warn you though, if you haven't heard, I ain't no Colleen, ukulele ballager, shots been fired. Wanna tell that, say it to my face though. Now behind my back, won't be long till you share it in a group chat. And when I tell you gonna backtrack. Cause you should've kept the name out your mouth. As we go, how it all turned out. When you try to use my name for a cloud, keep on going, give you something you could talk about.
Falsehoods junior developers believe about becoming seniors. How many people type 1 in the chat if you think you're in the junior area? If you're slightly juniory. Okay, we got a lot of ones, and then people that can't listen to instructions. Classic programmers, classic senior engineers in the chat. Thank you everybody for the random number generator, for the 69 number generator. Many appreciations for that. All right, these are mostly my thoughts about what I was expecting as a junior and how I perceive senior developers. To be honest, I was romanticizing them quite a bit. Damn, son. Woo! Woo! Senior developers were the people who could solve all the problems, constantly told me what to do, and knew all the answers. It's easy to fall prey to the fantasy that climbing the ranks will somehow bestow upon us a magical cloak of knowledge, authority, and ease. Okay. Let's let them cook. Dude, senior developer Riz is real. Okay, there's some real senior developer Rizes, okay? Let's see. I remember this one time before I was proficient in using the terminal. I had some issue with my Linux distribution. Something was not mounted properly or some file permission errors. I couldn't figure it out on my own. So I asked one of the senior devs for help. The grace and elegance of how they navigated Vim and jumped around with shortcuts was inspiring. It stayed in my memory forever. I also aspired to be like them, fast, efficient, know-it-all coding gurus. The reality is much more grounded and, in its way, more rewarding. By the way, that's also the reason why I decided to get super good at Vim in the terminal. I had this exact same experience. Literally, I had the exact same experience, except for instead of using Vim, the person used Emacs. But even then, even in my less senior state, I knew right away, you don't use Emacs. No, ain't nobody using Emacs. Okay, disgusting. Let's see. Where are we going? Were you following me? I don't necessarily feel like this is... Sometimes you got to wing it a little bit. Okay. The truth is that advancing your career is less about learning the terminal and more about embracing a new set of complex, nuanced responsibilities. Yes, you will get proficient in the terminal and using the terminal, which you should, by the way. You should. If you aren't proficient in using the terminal, you should. If you don't know how to use JQ, if you don't know how to use some basic grepping, if you don't know how to use a little bit of Xargs, just learn a couple core utils, and honestly, you'll save countless hours. Like literally, you'll save countless hours. So just do that because it's good for your soul. It'll make you happy. But you will also, in general, get better at solving simple problems. But those are not problems you'll be dealing with. To put it simply, the complexity of the issues will grow with your skill. Fair. Before we start, this essay is not meant to discourage you, but to prepare you for the reality ahead. Senior developers are not all-knowing 10x coders who can make unicorns out of thin air. So let's go through some of the falsehoods that juniors believe about senior developers. Okay, I like where this is going. I hope it doesn't end. I typically hate this meme where the meme is like, junior developer, I don't know what I'm doing. Senior developer, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I generally do know what I'm trying to do. Now, I may not know all the specifics, but I always hate that take. You know, I just hate that meme because that's kind of like seniors definitely have a good idea, right? Like, I may not know every twist and turn, and there's things that I'm going to get caught up on, but that's different than like I don't even know where to go. It's like I know where to go. I know how to navigate by the stars, but we may deviate some of the times. Flip, zoom in. Zoom in. I know what I'm doing. There we go. Let's see. Having all the answers. Expectation. I will be able to solve all the bugs and know what's wrong in a matter of minutes. Reality. The more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. Let's figure this out together. Again, depends on the problem. But the belief of that reaching a senior level means having all the answers is not just a misconception. It's a misrepresentation of what it truly means to grow and succeed in the tech industry. So many new algorithms, new technologies, and new frameworks are being released daily. I mean, I don't know about the algorithms, but most certainly the frameworks are being released at an extreme rate. I mean, we've had what is it? 4 new JavaScript runtimes in the matter of like runtimes. We're not even talking about frameworks at this point. We've had more databases, frameworks, and runtimes released in the last 2 years than we had in the last 10. It is wild. Saying that you, as a senior, have all the answers is a destructive to your growth. That's fair. This is a good statement. You shouldn't think you know everything, right? This is very good. By the way, if you ever get to a spot where you feel like you kind of know everything and it's more of a trudging step-by-step process of just getting through what you're already doing, I do think that this is a great way to stagnate your growth. And so if you find yourself in that position, it's a good time to like, okay, what can we do to change this up? What am I missing here? Your expertise isn't measured by the knowledge you possess, but by your ability to work with uncertainty. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like that. Ask the right questions to get where you need to be in terms of understanding, knowing how to find a solution once you have the understanding. Commonly referred to as problem solving. Problem solving, yes, this is good. This is good. That's on point. Never done learning senior, staff, etc. Yeah, you should never, ever, ever be done. I always operate on the assumption that I'm probably wrong and the world is full of people that potentially know more things than me. Yeah, that's typically how I try to operate at my job, is that I just assume everybody at my job is really smart and really good at what they do, so I am going to ask them about their area of expertise. Like, I have to make that assumption, or else if you don't make that assumption, it just tends to make working with people just not nearly as good. All right. It's fine to say, I don't know, or I don't understand that completely. Let's discuss this in more depth. Technology is vast, ever-expanding universe. Your job is to solve problems, not to be a know-it-all. As a senior, you're more of an amateur guide who knows how to get from a point A to point B, rather than an all-knowing guru who has memorized all the world's capitals. Fair. These are all fair points. Okay, so I like this. I like where this is going. I do like this analogy. You know how to go from point A to point B. You may not know all the in-betweens, but that's not a real thing. Working with the latest tech. Expectations. As a senior, I'll get to play with the latest tech and build amazing projects. Reality. This legacy code isn't going anywhere, and neither am I. Let's fix some bugs and that happen once every full moon. This is an interesting one. Let's let the bro cook for a second, and then I feel like I got a take coming on this one. Many junior developers dream of working exclusively with the latest frameworks and tools. However, a senior developer's role often involves maintaining and improving legacy systems. These systems carry the weight of years of business, logic, customer data, and potentially insights, or operational insights. As a senior developer, you will find that a significant part of your role involves understanding these systems, figuring out why they are breaking, and optimizing them to meet current and future demands, while also making sure not to break anything yourself. This is, for me, this is kind of more of a strong depends, right? It depends on what you're working on, how you're working on. Like, not every senior engineer does this. Not every person's working on a legacy system. Some people are building out something new within a legacy system. Some people are building out something new within a new system. I mean, Netflix is how many years old at this point? 20, 25 years old? And I recently built out something that was completely new, right? And I'm on another project in which there will probably be completely new things, and there's also just like the reality of this right here, that we're in a legacy system. And so it's not always this kind of stuff. Not even Falcor. That was not a Falcor mention. It was something completely new, just like last year. A bunch of the game streaming side of things. I built out a lot of the understanding of what was going wrong and all that. And so it was as latest tech can get. And so it's super cool. But again, like, if all you're ever doing is maintaining and fixing bugs, I'd be concerned about your growth. If all you're doing is building greenfield projects with nothing else, I would also be a bit concerned about your growth. Right? You definitely want a healthy mix of both. Many junior developers dream of working exclusively with the latest frameworks and tools. However, a senior developer's role often involves maintaining and improving legacy systems. These systems carry I already read that word for word. I actually already read that. I already did that. Yes, it's not as fun as it sounds, but that's the reality. Most of the software nowadays are legacy applications that require refactoring, which won't be approved anytime soon. So you'll have to patch it up and work with what you have. There's a lot of this. There's a lot of refactoring that I want to do right now. Like, I kid you not, pre-read. That was definitely pre-read. There's one thing, I kid you not, there's this one legacy thing that I'm working with right now that to, like, make a singular letter JavaScript change. I kid you not, 5+ minutes to build it. Just let that sink in for a second. It's just JavaScript. By the way, someone said it really bothers them when I highlight this way. It really satisfies me when I highlight this way, so guess what? Suck on it, okay? Enjoy it. Enjoy my highlighting. You're not here to make me change. I'm not here to make you change, okay? We're here to discuss tech. So grow up. You know what? You know what's another thing about being a senior engineer? You gotta let people do the things that they like to do, okay? All there is to it. Deal with it. Become a senior engineer. You do it on purpose? Absolutely, I do it on purpose. I like highlighting things that way. It makes me feel good. You're telling me when you highlight things, you don't do it on purpose? You're just like, and yeah! Or do you go, I'm going to highlight from here to here? What? Let the man enjoy his highlights. Yeah, just let me have... Dude, stop being such a highlightist, okay? No more boring tasks. I have a very hot one on this one. Expectation. Being a senior engineer means that I can avoid all the boring tasks. Reality. Endless meetings. I actually have very few meetings. I think this depends on the type of senior engineer you want to be. Documentation and code reviews. Oh, and let's see. Did I mention debugging legacy systems on Friday at 6 p.m.? So I don't think this is a good way to put it. I like this one phrase that one of my bosses told me a long time ago, which is the most senior engineers can do the most junior tasks. Meaning that if there is a task that is particularly mundane, particularly hard, like just hard to do due to just simply how boring it is, if you put a senior person on it, it will get done faster because they have more willpower and discipline to do the thing, as opposed to someone who's more junior who can't do those things. Patience and tedium. Yeah, like I had something just recently where we had this new bug come up that was kind of like surfacing, and we had some screenshots, and I wanted to see if they were of the profile gate or not. And we don't have some sort of automated way to determine if a screenshot is on profile gate or not that I knew about. And so it's like, I could take the next 20 minutes and just look at, I could take literally 20 minutes and look at 100 pictures and just determine where the problem was, or I could try to go figure out and how to do all the crap just to solve this one-time problem. And the answer is very simple. Just take 20 minutes and look at 100 pictures. It was that easy. Literally figured it out within just a few moments of looking at the pictures instead of trying to figure out some automated way to do this to get some sort of percentage, blah, 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 blah. Profile gate, it's like when you go to Netflix, you see like a list of icons, you know? It's an issue. It's a patience issue. Sounds like ageism. Yeah, someone said it sounds like ageism, not gonna lie. Okay, BGOG, you gotta say why. Say why. You're on the big screen. If senior developers are able to solve something faster, because they are experienced. Yeah, that's not ageism. That's experience, dog. Being good is being good, yes, but how do you become good? Okay, how do you become good at something? Oh, let the pro cook. How do you become good at something? Big Gog, where did you go, bro? Big Gog, where did you go? Big Gog. Got an ad, so I missed something clearly. Did I just get hit with an I'm joking, bro? Did I just get hit with an I'm joking, bro? We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. I don't read anything about ageism in this thing. What I read here is, or even in the statement, the most senior person can do the most junior task. It's all about your ability to be patient and have experience is directly proportional to how much time you put into an item, and how much time you put into something is most certainly proportional to age. It's very hard to have 10 years experience and be 21. Like, you're only going to get a handful of people that fall into this category. Most of us with 10 years of experience are probably going to be more like 28 to 38, depending on when you got into things. Like, of course, there is a natural, of course there's going to be a natural being older means you have more experience, and having talent and being good at something often comes with years of hard effort. Let's say the term senior is so broad. Many seniors are juniors when they don't have experience, or where they don't have experience, right? Okay, so this is actually an interesting point, and why I'll go with no on this one right here. Seniors can be juniors where they don't have experience. It depends on how far outside of the experience bubble it is. right? So like right now, if you ask me to go do, like, if you ask me to go help write part of Chat GPT-5 in the research area, yeah, like I'm completely out of my depth, right? But if you ask me to help make some part of the AI infrastructure more reliable, or if you ask me to make a tool to help gather up data and we can make some analysis decisions, like even though I've never worked with anything to do with how you're doing it, it could be completely new databases, completely new ways you store things, completely new all the things, still easily solve those problems, right? And so it's like, yeah, everybody's a junior when it comes to being something completely outside of the realm, but everybody's like that, right? Like, of course, no one here is good at nuclear physics except for those people that are good at nuclear physics. If only. If you were expecting that once you've risen the ladder, you'd be solving exciting problems left and right, not dealing with bureaucracy, I will have to disappoint you. The senior role comes with a share of seemingly mundane yet essential tasks, endless meetings, meticulous documentation, thorough code reviews, and yes, debugging legacy systems at the most inconvenient times. I haven't necessarily had a lot of this. My meetings are fairly good scheduled. I don't have a ton of them. I don't have too little. I have just a nice amount, right? I have an amount that's pretty good. I only meet about things that are very important. And so, okay, yeah, sounds like not a senior. Sounds like a senior on a team that's just trying to make a code, right? That's the thing, is that most meetings are useless, and you have to fight for meetings that don't need to exist. To be fair, your experience at Netflix is somewhat atypical of terms of time waste. Yes. A lot of people on my team all have a very similar kind of meeting schedule as us, because we kind of fight for just making sure we don't overdo meetings. Being protective of your time is a really important practice. And so every time I have a meeting, if it sucks, I let somebody know. Like, this is not a good meeting. You might think, ew, meetings, documentation, code reviews. But once you have reached a senior level, you will have a love-hate relationship with them. On one hand, you will be annoyed that there's little documentation. On the other hand, you'll be sure the project is maintainable even after 5 years. Meetings will annoy you because they take so much time, because they make you happy, because everyone is aligned and doing what's needed. Code reviews will annoy you because people will try to merge weird things that will need to improve. But you will be happy that your team is getting better based on your feedback. You hope. This is all kind of interesting. I think there's definitely two edges to this sword, because knowing, like, I mean, I understand what they're saying, and this is totally true, but not everything you write is going to last for 5 years. Sometimes you got to be willing to cut corners. And knowing that is also, it's in of itself its own skill, right? Like, knowing how long you should keep something going is a very interesting approach, because sometimes you will make a shortcut that you know is inevitably a bad decision, but it's better than just not fixing or just not moving forward, if that makes sense. How would I define a senior? Senior engineer is very, very simple. Someone who's just seen enough problems and failed enough times. Right? Because you could virtually put me onto any project and I could get up to speed and start solving things. And I have the confidence that I could do that. Right? That's just how I'd define it. Making big changes. Expectation has a million ideas on how to make changes this company, or a million ideas on how to change this company 180 degrees. Let's improve everything. Reality knows that nothing will change without management approval and the necessary budget. I mean, both these things can be true at the same time, though. I have a lot of ideas, but I also have to play ball. Like right now, the thing I'm working on, I have to play ball by making small changes and moving towards reliability, but I have bigger ideas that I want to test out. That I just need to first make the you can trust me changes on this new project. And so now that I'm getting the you can trust me, making the bigger changes are next. It's a common sentiment among junior developers to look at the systems, processes, and technologies around them and see endless opportunities for improvement. I was like that as well. I remember joining a company, taking a look at how they do things, thinking I knew better, and started shooting suggestions left and right.
But then why are you?
I've definitely been there. I actually think, someone said this article is kind of bland. I feel like if you didn't experience a lot of these things, I don't know. Like, who didn't experience this? Who doesn't land at a company and feel like you can make a lot of changes, right? I think that's good, right? Like, if you're excited about what you do, I think that's really, really good. And I think that companies that can mix the slow down a little bit and let's think about what you're trying to suggest, and let's keep you excited. I think that people that can really harness those two is really good. When you're young, you're a hammer and everything looks like a nail. This zeal is not only admirable, but necessary for the evolution and growth of our industry. This way, you get to make a tons of mistakes that will make you understand that not everything is a nail, and a hammer is not the only tool you should have. Yeah, this is great. This is absolutely great. Senior knows when to say no. You should mostly say no. Now, let's say I always feel that way, but now I ask a lot of questions. Exactly. You ask a lot of questions, but I always feel like you could improve things. This was me. I feel like this was me to a T. I feel seen in this part. Some of these things I don't feel like they match up nearly as well. I think a lot of times seniors do get to go explore some of the newest tech to kind of understand how things are going. You should make time for that. Like as a senior engineer, you should make time that you're exploring new tech, new languages, understanding why they're good. Why should you have them under your belt is because at some point you're going to need to build a tool, and if you always default to the same thing, it may not be very good in specific situations. Like just understanding how to make little things quickly is super good, because nothing is worse than the person that builds a simple tool and then drops on you some like React monster with 9,000 libraries when you could have written literally 200 lines of code and a simple HTMX endpoint with Go. It's like there's times where you should know when and how to use these things, but if you only ever stay in one single lane, you're going to only produce that one single lane of code. And sure, it gets you into the senior status, but it may not be something you want to always use. HTMX mentioned. I use HTMX because HTMX is the clearest and simplest, like obvious oopsie daisy that has been being made a lot of times. You get these internal applications that are just behemoths, and they do simple things. And you're like, take a step back. Like this could be really, really, we could like greatly, like let's just delete all the code and make it simple. You know what? We don't need to maintain this as if 100 people are going to work on it. One person's going to work on it. Throw a couple endpoints and call it a day. You know what I mean? Learn to communicate the value of your ideas in terms that resonate with relevant stakeholders. This is a huge skill, by the way. Figure out how to budget, how the budget is allocated, and take part in resource planning. The bigger the project, the harder it will be to jump through all the hoops, but be well worth it. As you grow in your expertise, you see that bringing change requires time, building a case for your idea that resonates not just on a technical level, but also aligns with organizational goals, budgetary limitations, and risk management considerations. Building things is just fun. Building things that bring benefit to the company is fun and rewarding. And something like one thing that's a little bit missing in here is that, or maybe not emphasized in here, is it's not all about arguing your idea. One of the easiest ways to deliver an idea is to build a concept of it and be like, this is what I think you should be, like how you should be solving things. And it's like a dirt simple version of whatever already exists. Yeah, it doesn't do everything, but it's so easy to show somebody something as opposed to try to explain why you're more correct. Time to relax. Expectation. Once I become a senior, I'll have more time to relax. It's fine. I'll finish the work on Saturday. I'd be super careful ever saying this, just in general. You know, you should definitely make time to explore things outside of work and build things that make you excited. If you're always doing work, if you're always doing one thing, like unless if work really excites you, if you're only ever just doing work, you'll find yourself, I think you get closer to burnout easier. Now, I'm not saying program less or explore less. Okay, I think you could program on Saturday all you want, but it's only work. I feel like if you're doing something you don't enjoy, but you're just doing it a bunch, I think you will have something there. American brain working on a Saturday. Sometimes you got to work on a Saturday. It's not an American brain. Sometimes there's just production problems, and you gotta put on your belt and get the job done. You know, you gotta gird your loins. Like it's just part of it. It's just part of life. Suck it up. It's not fun. Nobody wants to do that. So. Expectation. I'll make sure to have a perfect work-life balance once I'm a senior. Balancing deadlines, mentoring, and personal life is like juggling knives. Occasionally, one does drop. One does get dropped. Yeah. One thing I try to do is not write down too many things that I need to do and necessarily forget the things that aren't important. I know that's like an unusual way to I'm not saying everybody should do this, but if you're fast and you know how to get things done and you know how to communicate, often I find that forgetting the things that aren't important have really helped. Or in other words, just say no. The workload doesn't necessarily decrease, it evolves. You might find yourself dedicating weekends to wrapping up projects or tackling unexpected issues. Your responsibility extends beyond coding and technical tasks to include mentoring, strategic planning, and often greater involvement in the operational aspects of projects. One thing I do have at my job is we have pretty much no junior engineers. I think we have like one junior engineer. And so mentoring and that kind of like, a lot of these meetings don't quite exist where I'm at, just because I don't even have the opportunity to do that thing. You become more accountable and receive a higher salary for your commitment. Junior developers don't really care if their task is blocking 10 other people in project delivery. I don't know if that's true, but you do. These responsibilities mean that they can your work can extend into the evenings or weekends, especially when deadlines loom or unforeseen issues arise. I think junior developers do care. In fact, they care so much that they often overdo things and try to overcorrect and end up making things worse because they're just trying to make all these people happy and they feel like they must do the things at this exact moment, right? And they completely overcorrect in this thing. Don't overcorrect. Communicate. It's okay. You don't need to do 48 hours, right? It is. I find a lot of juniors get overcooked in this exact thing. The expectation of having more time to relax as a senior is in many ways a misunderstanding of the nature of senior roles. While you do gain more autonomy over your schedule and the types of projects you work on, this autonomy comes with responsibility to manage and deliver on multiple fronts, often requiring a juggling act between professional obligations and personal life. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. If you want more responsibility by the very nature, you're going to have to. I mean, you're going to have to do things that you may not find the most enjoyable at times that aren't the most convenient. I encourage you to develop strategies that support a sustainable balance between work and life. This might involve honing your time management skills or learning to delegate more effectively. It also means making a conscious effort to prioritize your health and personal relationships rather than a higher salary. This is good. People, work out, eat well, drink water, find somebody to love, take a moment, right? Like, do all those things. Honestly, these other things, they're great and all, but they're just not worth it. You know, sleep well. Get 8 hours of sleep, unless if you're Thor. If you're not Thor, then don't do that. But, you know, the salary, though. Expectation. Once I become a senior, I will lead big projects, have a big impact, and tell others what to do. I miss the times when people told me what to do. I don't miss that. I don't miss that at all. There are particular expectations that I'd like to address today. The notion that rising to senior position means you'll no longer be involved in hands-on work, focusing instead solely on giving tasks to other people, mentoring juniors, and focusing purely on architecting. While it's true that seniors involve a significant amount of meta work, planning, thinking, and making decisions, there's a lot of hands-on stuff that still needs to be done. Fixing legacy code bases. This really fixating on the legacy code bases. Sometimes, I guess it really just depends on what you're working on. A lot of people are feature working, and feature working means that you're not really fixing legacy. You're building out new things that you only know. That only you know how to fix them. Performing code reviews for the new project, creating diagrams for management to understand the security of the platform. By the way, if you are doing the security of your platform, just some senior engineer, I would just like to let you know you're probably going to get hacked. Just throwing it out there. Unless if what you're doing is fully focused on security, you're probably getting hacked, okay? There's don't be dumb with your security, right? That's my secret. I'll never know the security of the platform. Boom. Just saying. That's crazy. The more senior you become, the less people will tell you what to do, and the more they expect you to know what needs to be done. You go from dealing with tasks like implement quicksort instead of merge sort in function XYZ to the management has decided to integrate AI in the HR department. How can we make that happen? Both of those require hands-on work, but at different levels. Fair. With great power comes great responsibility and anxiety. Leading big projects means facing the pressure of making the right decisions and the fear of failure. Don't ever fear failure. I don't know. I never have that fear. I just assume I can always do it. It's a rewarding challenge, but it can also be a daunting one. Eventually, you will miss the days of focusing solely on coding tasks without adding responsibility of figuring out the big picture transitions. I just don't do that one. Real talk. If you have a track record of solving things, you probably will continue to solve things. Just saying. Oh my, finding companies that will hire a security-focused folks, that's a privilege. It is a privilege, but it's also pretty much necessary. I mean, that's the reality of things. If you think that you can just magically pull security out of a hat, like you probably just have, you probably have problems. You just haven't discovered them yet. And maybe somebody else has discovered them, they just haven't told you. I mean, that's the reality. Security is non-trivial, and Rust won't save you. I hope. Let's see. Once I become a senior, they won't be able to lay me off. I hope I won't be laid off. Yeah, very company-dependent stuff. It's comforting thought to believe that seniority equates to job security. However, the reality of our industry, known for its rapid evolution and fluctuating market demands, tells a different story. You might be thinking, I'm the only one who knows how to fix this legacy system. They won't dare let me go. And then they close down the whole project entirely, making your role redundant. Yeah, I mean, this does happen, but I think this is more of a problem of larger companies. You know, like at Google, where they can just one day close down entire departments. You know, if all you are doing is just building one thing, typically as the thing starts shutting down, or they're starting to lose budget, they tend to fire the people that are less senior, the people that have less of the stuff. Google Plus mentioned, yeah. Google tends to be the ones that just fire, just destroy everybody. This article replying to a straw man arguments never has anybody say he'll be finally able to slack off or do whatever he wants once he's a senior developer. Yeah, I never had that notion. This whole that's why this it didn't even make any sense to me, these arguments, because I've just never had these as arguments. All right, it's comforting thought to believe that seniority equates to job security. However, the reality of our industry, blah, 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 already read that. While seniors' roles do come with a degree of stability thanks to the experience and expertise required to attain them, the notion that one cannot be laid off is a myth. Well, yeah, of course, anyone can eventually be laid off. Companies face various pressures, economic downturns, shifts in strategies, mergers, and acquisitions, and all of these can lead to restructuring and, unfortunately, layoffs that affect employees at all levels. Drastic times call for drastic measures, aka investors are expecting higher margins. Yeah, I mean, anybody can be fired. Just because you're a senior doesn't mean that you're going to not get fired. But it is kind of silly to think that being senior and being useful at your company also doesn't mean you're more protected. Besides for a place is so big that they just fire verticals, right? They're just get everybody with Google Plus out. Google Plus doesn't exist, therefore the employees we've hired for Google Plus also don't exist. Study the Office Space interview and never get laid off. There you go. I'm a people person, damn it. Reading about getting fired and half the people are here during work hours. Yeah. I think that I think there's a couple. I think there's a couple really great ones. This article had a bunch of points that I think maybe weren't as fantastic, but I think there was one that was really great, which is this one, which is making big changes and saying that when you first start off, you're going to come in there and you're going to be shooting suggestions and all this, and as you get more senior, you know how to hone them in a little bit more. But there's kind of a missing piece, which is you should keep shooting your suggestions. Wow. But as a senior, you ask a few more questions before you start shooting them. And mundane tasks, being okay with mundane tasks. If you could if those two things, I mean, some of them are kind of interesting because there's definitely you see this a lot in today's world where people you saw it in his language about something about, fear of failure, right? You see this a lot. I'm not sure where this crept up from, but you also just don't have to have that. And I know that's easier said than done, but at some point you have to look on your past and realize that you've solved enough problems that you can do the next one. And that's a you choice at some point. At some point, if you've been doing and solving stuff for the last 10 years and you still feel like maybe I can't do it, like that's a you choice. And you got to choose something different at some point. All right, the name. You know what the name is. The name is the Junior Origin. The Junior Origin? The Junior Origin.
Uber and began a robotics company too, actually wants regulation. If wealthy free market tech entrepreneurs, not exactly Chairman Mao, are asking the government to step in, then I think that should tell us something. Here are some things we do regulate in some way: medicine, law, clinical trials, pharmaceuticals, biological weapons, chemical, nuclear, all weapons actually, pretty much, buildings, food, air travel, cars and transport, space travel, pollution, electrical engineering, basically anything potentially dangerous. Okay, so what could careful regulation look like? It's a difficult question. I always think regulation should aim for the maximum amount of benefit for all with the minimum amount of interference. First, transparency in some way will be central. There's an important concept called interoperability. It's when procedures are designed in an open way so that others can use them too. It stops dominant interests blocking others out of the market. Banking systems, plugs and electrics, screw heads, traffic control are all interoperable. Organizations or manufacturers can plug in and use the system, designed to work with the system. Microsoft have been forced into being interoperable so that anyone can build applications easily for Windows. This is a type of openness and transparency. It's for technical experts, but there needs to be some way auditors, safety testers, regulatory bodies, and the rest of us can, in varying ways, see under the hood of these models. Regulators could pass laws on dataset transparency, or transparency on the answers large language models give and where those answers come from. You could require references, sources, crediting, so that people are in some way compensated for their work. As Waldridge writes, transparency means that the data that a system uses about us should be available to us, and the algorithms used within that should be made clear to us too. This will only come from regulation. That means regulatory bodies with qualified experts answerable democratically to the electorate. Suleiman points out that the Biological Weapons Convention in the US has just 4 employees, fewer than a McDonald's. Regulatory bodies should work openly with networks of academics and industry experts, making findings either public to them or public to all. Trials of new models could be based on clinical trials. We shouldn't be letting OpenAI safety test themselves. They need to be audited or put through safety trials by democratically accountable experts in a wide range of areas. We don't even have to rely on government employees, although I think we should. Regulation could instead force companies to spend a certain percentage of their own revenue on safety testing, or to also use a certain number of outside specialists from universities and industries that are relevant. Suleiman writes, as an equal partner in the creation of the coming wave, governments stand a better chance of steering it towards the overall public interest. There's a strange misconception that regulation means less innovation, but innovation always happens in a context. It's directed by many things. Recent innovations in green technologies, batteries, and electric vehicles would not have come about without regulatory changes and might have happened much sooner with different incentives and tax breaks. The internet, along with many other scientific and military and space advances, were not a result of private innovation, but an entrepreneurial state. And of course, much innovation comes out of universities. I always come back to openness, transparency, accountability, and democratic oversight because, as I said at the end of how the internet was stolen, it only takes one mad kid, one greedy dictator, one slimy pope, or one foolish jester to nudge the levers they hover over towards chaos, rot, and even tyranny.
Which leads me to the final point. AI, as we've seen, is about that impossible totality. It really might be the new fire or electricity because it implicates everything.
Why the
Everyone,
fuck?
Everywhere. And so, more than anything, it's about the issues we already face. The knowledge that comes out of artificial intelligence is already political, economic, already implicated in global affairs, workers and wages, healthcare and pensions, culture and war. And it's those concrete material things that matter. And I'd wager that, like every total technological transformation that came before, the printing press and the Industrial Revolution in particular, this one will also require a radical change in our politics. The printing press led to the Reformation, and the Industrial Revolution to liberalism and capitalism. What will our political world look like under AI? That's up to us. We're in for a period of mass disruption. That's almost certain. And so we need to democratically work out how AI can address all these issues instead of exacerbate them.
If we don't, we'll make ourselves slowly obsolete, redundant, forgotten. AI, using everything that we know, that we built or discovered, will surpass us and will drift off into the future, leaving us behind. We need to make sure that each of us is tethered in some way to that incomprehensibly different future, connected to it, taught by it, in control of it, compensated by it, it in service of us, all of us. I'm excited and daunted in equal measure, but my sense is that if we don't do that, rather than wiped out, we'll be left stranded in the wake of a colossal, super intelligent juggernaut that we just don't understand, just forgotten, left behind, like all of the human species that we surpassed, that then went extinct. All of us left, fleshy, old-fashioned, forgotten, bobbing around, watching the future go up. A dark, deep, endless, boundless sea.
So I told you to watch your back. Never know what to expect down here. That's the only solid fact. Guess I'd rather be on vacation. Guess I haven't got the education. I have an explanation.
Thank you so much to all of these incredible people for supporting Then and Now. I've got some exciting ideas for some even bigger and better projects in the future. And listen, I know I've given this spiel already, but this channel is my absolute passion. I spend pretty much all of my time very carefully reading, trying to go as deep in my research as possible, asking the most probing questions I can, educating myself where I think necessary, looking at history, politics, and philosophy as widely as I can, and working out what I think is important for our future. On Patreon, there are already bonus videos on how to think differently about history, and I've got more Patreon-only videos in the works that I'm excited about. You get access to the private chat server, you can see early scripts, you can watch the videos ad-free and early and sometimes uncensored. It's $1 per month. If you can't do that, don't feel bad. Click the bell, press subscribe, press
Just go away. Just fucking go away. Fuck! Your website's broken, you assholes. fuck that stupid fucking. Great. explode. I want to fucking go